Turkey. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is a great honor. And I am super excited to present this very fresh project. It's the second time presenting this. Let me just say a few things. So first of all, this is a joint effort together with Ralph de Haas and Cevat Aksoy, my colleagues at the EBRD, and Emre, Akgunduz, and Hasan Yılmaz from the Central Bank of Turkey. And this is, as you can see, a work in progress also because this is one of those papers that has changed the title 4 times between the application to the conference and when the conference is actually accepted me. So let me give you the motivation of this paper. So we are going to talk about place-based industrial policies. So these are strategic interventions whose goal is to promote local economic growth, and they are increasingly more used across different low and middle-income countries. It has gained a lot of attention recently, both on policy realms and academic discussions. What has been less highlighted is that there are different types of place-based industrial policies. So everyone knows, is more acquainted with the special economic zones, whose goal is essentially like foster employment, and they are typically at the area level, there are some areas that are exempt from national regulations. Then we also have industrial zones, whose focus is on manufacturing productivity, as well as free trade zones, which instead are actually focusing on trade, and so export-oriented growth. The focus of this paper is about technology development zones, and we're going to call them technoparks. So the goal of the technoparks is to support high-tech innovation and technology upgrading, and the focus is on targeting R&D investments and innovation at the firm level. So, maybe yes, maybe not. Yes. So empirically, the effects of this type of place-based industrial policies has been heavily debated. Early studies have basically claimed and has basically showed that place-based policies have limited efficiency gains. So they're basically reallocating gains from one area to the other. More recent studies, especially those that are using firm-level data instead, show that there are more encouraging results on aggregate economic activities. What is less known is the effect of these place-based policies on firm technology upgrading and market access. So our paper asks this simple question. So what is the local impact of technoparks on firm creation, firm innovation, and productivity? How do we answer to this question? So thanks to the access to the rich data from the Central Bank of Turkey, which is, we have different administrative data sets that have been accessed through the Central Bank, and we're using a match difference in difference, which exploits the staggered introduction of technoparks across the country. The outcomes that we're going to look at are at the district level, so firms' entry and exit, as well as at the firm level, the technological context of production and trade, high-tech employment, and productivity. So, in the interest of time, so let me introduce you to the main findings of the paper. So first of all, what we find is that firms that are near newly established technoparks start to engage more in technology-intensive domestic and foreign trade. Second, we do find that technoparks establish and foster firms' automation. There is an increased employment of high skills, high-tech workers, and as a result, we observe medium-term gains on total factor productivity. But let me give you more meat to this project by introducing you to the context. So let me tell you why Turkey is a nice laboratory to study this question. So we're talking about the technology development zones that have been established as early as 2000 in this country, and they have started with major cities. So think about the Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, the most developed cities in the country. As a few months ago, from the Ministry of Trade, we can count 113 technoparks, of which 93 are already operational and 20 are under discussion. And they cover different provinces across the country. So don't think anymore about just the richest parts of the country, but across the country. They typically host, so the membership are extended to a mixed type of firms, but there is a meaningful share of firms that are in high-tech and knowledge-intensive industries. What a technopark essentially it consists in economic incentives, such as corporate tax and VAT exemptions, but especially collaboration with universities and research institutions, because these are buildings that are within university campus. And they also give some access to services such as patent assistance, business incubation, and so on and so forth. While there is an heterogeneity in terms of sectoral focus, they are all under the same legal framework. So we're going to basically treat the technopark as being a unique type of treatment. Clearly, we can get more information. And so the next step that we're going to do as the EBRD and the Central Bank of Turkey is to run a national level survey with technopark managers to understand a little bit more about the content of the technoparks as well. So this chart shows you the interest of the government in this type of policy. So this is the rollout from the early 2000s up until September 2025, showing you the increased number of technoparks across the country. Now, let me introduce you to the, yes?
Can you show the rollout of the states? Are there any in Eastern Anatolia?
We have, yes. I don't have a map over time, but I'm going to show you a map of where they are located. Yes?
Investment in physical infrastructure, high-speed internet access.
So we're gonna delve more into that once we're gonna do the survey, because this information is not publicly available. But you should think about a building which is already available at the campus level, and they're gonna basically put the infrastructure that already exists. So perhaps there is gonna be some improvement, but we can tell something more once we've collected the data from the managers. Okay, so the data that yes.
Distorting the location of economic activity?
So we do have some preliminary results on the type of spillovers, and the spillovers are kind of positive. But in order to say something more about that, we have to build a model, and we haven't done it yet. So we don't know yet. But it's a fair point. So the data that we use is the panel of all the universe of all the non-financial Turkish firms. And the sample that we use goes from 2009, which is when the Central Bank of Turkey has the most reliable data, up until 2023. And this exercise allowed us to construct a panel of 245,000 firms across multiple years. So the firm level data that we use are the following. So we have access to the balance sheet and income statement from the tax authority, firm location data from tax authority, firm-to-firm trade invoice, transaction level foreign trade, and matched employer-employee data from the Social Security Institute. How do we measure the technology content of trade? So we're going to call high-tech domestic purchases and sales coming from the firm-to-firm trade data and the Eurostat classification of two-digit NACE sector as essentially purchase or sale of raw materials, input, or intermediate goods or furnished products that coming from suppliers or customers in high-tech sector. So think about purchasing computers, electronics, electrical equipment, and so on and so forth. When it comes to high-tech exports, we are using foreign trade data and a Turkstat taxonomy in terms of what is high-tech and medium-tech or low-tech. And then we also have high R&D exports. And in order to define high R&D exports, we have foreign trade data merged at the 6-digit product level. And we follow an existing methodology that basically classify economic activities by their R&D intensity. And finally, we define high skills exports from another existing paper from Journal of Politics that basically looks at 6-digit product level and essentially identifies goods that require a higher intensity of labor skills. When it comes to automation, we essentially take imports of capital goods that can be used in the automation of business processes. So think about industrial robots or other automatic capital goods, and this comes from a definition of an existing paper by Akgunduz. And finally, when it comes to TFP, we are measuring TFP using an existing off-the-shelf methodology by Ollie and Pegs, which can correct for simultaneity and selection bias. When it comes to high-tech employment, we essentially classify occupations that are engaged in R&D and this technology implementation. So we come up with 4 different categories of employees. So think about science and engineers, ICT professionals, ICT technicians, and so on and so forth. Regional data is important because of the matching that we're going to do. So in order to have comparable districts. So we're going to take all the available data on population density, population growth, average household size, number of firms, sale intensity, but also bank presence, nighttime lights data, and so on and so forth. And these are going to be important when it comes to having comparable districts. And let me tell you a little bit more about what we mean with this. So the identification strategy, unfortunately, we cannot compare directly districts with a technopark with the other districts that don't have a technopark because technoparks are not randomly allocated. And so we are risking of having differences that are driven by observable and unobservable characteristics. So one approach that we use in this paper is to combine matching with different diff, thanks to the context. So the idea is to match treated districts, so districts that have a technopark, they see the introduction of a technopark with comparable districts. And we apply a different diff on this sample of the matched districts. So what are these districts? So essentially, they are called ILSE. They are more or less equivalent to US counties, and they have a technopark opening in post-2009 period. We do a one-to-one propensity score matching within a subregion. And we are coming up with this method with 40 treated districts and 40 control. And this is the map that I was asked before that basically shows you which are the districts that belong to our sample. Yes. So we are matching on the following characteristics, which is population density, population growth, household size, gender ratio, young population ratio, then also some firm intensity, so the number of firms, sales intensity, employment intensity, bank presence, political preference, and nighttime lights. Say it again?
Distance to ports, distance to infrastructure.
Yes, so we haven't done it, but we can improve on it.
I only say this because as someone at the World Bank, we frequently get pressure to put these things in places where there's no employment.
Yeah, no, fair point. I mean, yeah, so to the extent, yeah, okay. The employment side, the employment part is captured by this variable, this number of people that are employed in the district, but fair point, this is a different type of variable. I mean, this is just to show you the balance table of the characteristics. So before matching, we have 880 control and 40 treated districts. Of course, they are not comparable. And so after the matching, you see that there is balance across these characteristics. Of course, also, we want to check that firms' characteristics are also balanced. And this chart shows you that across different types of characteristics of firm at the baseline level, they are balanced after matching. So the two type of analysis, as I said, at the district level, at the firm level. So the district level, we're going to use this type of analysis because we want to study the impact of technoparks on district level firm creation. So we define a variable called firm entry, which basically consider the firms that become operational in a specific district in a given year. And we also analyze the type of firms that are entering the district. So whether they are tech-oriented, they are into tech-oriented activities. In addition, we can also study whether technopark establishment affect also firm exit. Usual parallel trend assumptions. Here, we assume, and we're going to test with parallel trends, whether the outcomes in treated and controlled districts would have behaved similarly in absence of technoparks. Yes, Alex.
Do you know anything about the ownership structure of firms? Are these truly new firms, or could it just be an establishment of a...
They are becoming operational within the district. So I don't know exactly if there are like plans. I say this was already existing somewhere else. I don't know that. And I can do better with that. At the firm level, we are studying the effect of technoparks on individual firms' technological breading, automation, and TFP. We use firm fixed effect and subregion fixed effect such that we are exploring the variation within each subregion times year. Usual parallel trend assumptions that we're going to test. Firms in treated districts would have evolved in a similar way as firms in the controlled districts in absence of technoparks. We conduct some sample restrictions such that these firms are incumbent, so we want to measure, what happens to firms that exist before the introduction of technopark, and we observe them for other 3 years after the introduction of technopark. Our baseline estimation are on two-way fixed effect, but when we conduct more modern techniques, the results are qualitatively very similar. Okay, so finally, let me show you some results. Yes.
Sorry. So interestingly, you can track individual firms as they move around, no?
Yeah.
Have you looked at how much you see firms moving across districts in response to the...
Right, so we can in theory do that if they move from a district to another district, because unfortunately we don't have access to the exact address of the firm. But that can be done, and we haven't done it yet. So, district level results. Districts that open a technopark stimulate firm entry. So there is a 44 more firms in districts that open. districts are all into high-tech sectors. So, you define high-tech based on purchases or sales, and you find a similar result. At the same time, we don't find anything on like more high R&D, high-tech exports, because in order perhaps to build this sort of capacity, it may take a little bit of time, and so in order to attract this type of firms, it takes a little bit longer. And finally, we do not observe, as column 7 shows, effect on firm exit, which can be that maybe it doesn't. There is like a low competitive pressure, or maybe that there is no immediate displacement of existing firms.
Industrial policy?
There are, so yes, so it's an excellent question, and that's on our table. So we have to collect this. We don't have access to where these subsidies are and where these other zones are, and we're making efforts to collect.
Do you match districts within the same province, or are they allowed to vary across?
Sub-region, yes. So essentially, like it's smaller. It's a little bit smaller than province. Yes. Per district, yes, on average. Okay, now let me move to the firm level results. First, what happens to high-tech purchases and sales? This event study shows you that, so whenever I'm going to show you event studies, you're going to find on your right extensive margins, which is essentially propensity that I'm equal to 1 if a firm starts to be engaged in this type of activities, and on the left-hand side, the intensive margin, which is the value. Okay, so firms in treated districts increase high-tech domestic purchases, and this effect is equal to 3.4% over the control mean. And when it comes to the intensive margin, this effect is equal to 3.4% increase in high-tech procurement.
So can you also see the effects on the firms that supply the inputs to these farms?
Right, yeah, yes, what's your idea? So your idea that you're also going to observe the propagation of the, yeah, so we could do that. We haven't done it yet, yes. And there is also an effect on high-tech sales. So the introduction of technoparks in a district also increase high-tech sales, high-tech domestic sales. So on the extensive margin, we do observe an increase of 4% over the control mean. And on intensive margin, we do observe a non-significant 1.3% increase. So taking stock, essentially, and an additional finding that I haven't shown you, but it's in the table and it's in the paper, we do find a negative effect on low-tech procurement, which to us is suggestive evidence that technoparks help firms to gradually reorient their portfolio. They are starting to deal in more technology-intensive domestic trade. Yes?
Is the leveling off on the effect on domestic sales because they're switching more towards exports?
Yes, so let me show you the results on the exports, and maybe we can also talk about whether there is a connection if you have an idea of how to make this connection. So the effects on let me show you the results on high-tech exports. And in fact, we do observe, both on the intensive and an extensive margin, that there is a higher probability of being engaged in high-tech exports. So the effect on the extensive margin is equal to 4.3% increase relative to control. And for what concerns the intensive margin, the effect is equal to 4.1%. So essentially for us, this is evidence that the technoparks alter the composition of the local firm's export portfolio. And these results are consistent across different definitions. Remember, I've just shown you high tech, but we also find exactly similar effects on high R&D, high skills, because these definitions basically overlap. What I've not shown you, but it's in the table again, there is absence of a negative effect on only low-tech trade, low sophistication exports. So what that means is that, to us, it means that this upgrading generates additional trade rather than redirecting export capacity. Let me give you also some evidence on firm automation and productivity. So technoparks gradually increase automation over time. As you can see from this event study, there is a 8.18% of the control mean in terms of increase in the probability of imports in automation-related capital goods. So this is only the extensive margin. But we have a similar effect also on the extensive margin. And when it comes to firm productivity, we do observe that there is a medium-term gain in TFP. And this effect is equal to 2.9% over the control mean. Yes.
So you do have capital and investment, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, yes.
Do you have that as an output?
We had at a certain point of our direction, but we don't have it. I don't have it here. Yes.
The sales, what is the nature of sales? Is it services? Is it merchant? Are the sales, what are the products they sell? Is it services or are they merchandise?
It's a mix. It's a mix, yes.
But
Yeah.
has there been a change in the mix?
Fair point. I don't know. So I can check, but this can be checked. Okay, so just to summarize what we found on automation and TFP, so the increase in automation is consistent with trade-induced technology upgrading, and the effect on TFP is consistent with learning by exporting channel. So in a summary, and to sort of put things in perspective of the literature on place-based industrial policy, technoparks appear to generate genuine efficiency gains instead of like reallocation of resources, at least for what concerns the portfolio of a firm. Yes?
How do you distinguish between whether those TFP gains are the product of learning by exporting versus just regular learning by doing?
I think that we can't do that at the moment, but there is evidence for that, but we want to sort of like delve into understanding more about the services of the technoparks. We can do that once we get more information about what the technoparks are actually doing at each technopark. So we don't know, in theory we can say more, but we don't say it now.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any opportunity to link to maybe patent data to see what's the level of patenting.
Could be. My understanding, so I still have to delve more into the Turkish ecosystem of the data. I understand that it is like not a huge patenting at among Turkish firms. If there is, it could be like some specific large firms, but this potentially can be done and we can link the data.
So I was wondering, these parks have been around for a long time, but if you look at the Turkish firms' overall, industrial upgrading and sort of foreign exports, for example, the technology upgrading has been very stagnant. And here you just look at domestic high-tech exports, I guess, or do you also have the foreign?
This is exports. So these effects that I showed you are also exports. So this comes from the trade data.
Like foreign exports?
Yeah, foreign exports. Foreign exports. So yeah, so I've shown you domestic trade and foreign trade as well.
But does it actually lead to any movement in terms, like how much of this explains, do you think, the changes in the Turkey's high-tech export portfolio? Did you do like back-of-envelope calculation?
No, not yet.
Because that's very stagnant as far as I know, like over the years.
Okay. And so you think that this can be something that there must be something else going on rather than just
it's 4% increase, but I'm just wondering, maybe they need a lot more actually to get this going at a large scale.
At the aggregate level.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, fair. No, we haven't made any calculation yet on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might want to revisit. I know they had to lay an old paper a little bit, and they kind of make a big point that migration and input-output networks kind of like make these type of policies, have more muted effects. I think it would be interesting if in your case, you could look at spillovers and say, well, both the spillovers in the goods market or through input-output networks, as well as among employees, whether the effect is actually much bigger because of that. Right? So
yeah, 100%. So we have just touched a little bit about the employees' data, and so we can do much better on that also to understand where these employees are coming from. I have a slide where I show you that it's on our plate, but we're not there yet. But thank you. Okay. Okay, so this is just on the high-tech employment, just to show you that technoparks are increasing firms' employment of high-tech workers. So this is the propensity, so this is extensive margin, and the effect is equal to 3.1% increase of the control mean. But the effect is present also on the employment share of high-tech employees, and the effect is equal to 3.8% of the control mean. We've done lots of robustness checks, results are remaining there. And so as I promised you, so I'm just like introducing you to the next steps. Perhaps the next version of the paper is going to be more complete. So we're going to use the employer-employee match data exactly to do something connected to what Martin was suggesting in order to understand where these employees are coming from. Are they fresh graduate from university? Are they coming from other existing firms? Are they coming from different districts? And so talking about the migration channel. And we're going to try also to link with the value, so linking in data, because unfortunately the employer-employee match data does not have education or type of skills. And so we can say something about the skill scarcity dimension. And finally, as I have already alluded to, we want to conduct a survey to Technomark managers to talk more about the activities. And so say whether it is heterogeneity along the line of, say, better governance or different types of park profile, whether they target larger firms, whether they target some specific type of firms, and so on and so forth. Presence of finance, infrastructure, and constraints. And this would allow us also to do something on the implementation cost and maybe do something, a calculation or return on investment, which we don't have yet. Okay, so with potentially my last 30 seconds remaining, so just let me conclude and summarize what we've done. So we evaluate the impact of the staggered rollout of technoparks across a large emerging country such as Turkey on firm-level outcomes. We do so by using rich microdata and a matched different design between 2009 and 2023. We do find that technoparks increased firms' export by 4.1%, automation by 8.18%, and productivity by 2.9%. So the main message that this paper has is to basically contribute to the policy debates about the effect of place-based industrial policy. So Technopark seems to generate, at least at the firm level, efficiency genuine gains rather than reallocating resources, again, at least at the firm level. And through technology upgrading, market access through international trade, and knowledge diffusion. Thank you so much for this, and looking forward to your feedback.
Thank you. So we have lunch break right now.